A couple of years ago, I decided to go back to university to study while working full-time. I was doing this in the evenings, and halfway in between, I was offered a more difficult full-time job, which I accepted, but I still had to finish the master's degree. Somehow I still managed to get distinction, and I think this system really helped me. Hi, I'm Mario, and I'm an intellectual property practitioner with a background in psychology, and I'm here to help individuals and companies perform better by focusing on people. On this channel, we discuss the psychology of innovation and well-being. As you'll know, there's a wealth out there about time management and task management, procrastination, and all that stuff you'll find readily on YouTube. I'm not going to repeat the obvious stuff or the stuff that I see most often. I have 4 tips I'm going to discuss. 1 is designing spaces. 2 is ritualizing your transitions. 3 is study material that is novel. 4, earn credit but give it to. So 1 is designing special spaces. I mean this physically and in your planning. So physically, what I would do after finishing work at about 5:30, I would walk to the library and spend the evenings there on Mondays and Wednesdays usually. I'd have my own general area in the library that I would usually frequent, which let me wind down everything that I was thinking about work and let that go for the day and begin to load up everything that I was going to do for the evening session in the library. This is the journal that I used to plan everything during my master's degree. I used the bullet journaling method, and I used that in my day job and personal life, but I kept a completely separate diary for university specifically. The reason I did that is that when I look at it, I'm only thinking about psychology, about the master's degree, about that particular element of the work that I need to do. And that just meant that when I was doing lists or I was thinking about what I was going to do for that week or month, I was not thinking about all the nitty-gritty things that I needed to do around the house or any silly stuff like that. When I'm looking at this diary, I see this color, I'm only thinking about university. This might be a bit extreme for some people. You don't necessarily need to have a completely separate diary, but I would recommend at least having a completely separate section that looks different, that feels different to the rest of your diary. And if you're using something more digital, then at least create a separate space so that you can't see your other stuff whilst you're planning. I found this really useful because it meant that I was only ever thinking about university when this was out. Number 2 is ritualize your transitions. I would have specific rituals when I knew I was going to university to do some work, or if I was going somewhere else where I knew I had to get work done. Those included normally getting a meal on the way, maybe having a coffee, but I'd frequent at the same places so that I knew that I was going through the same motions that I had done before, and that meant when I got to the place, I was ready to sit down and do the work. When I left work, I'd give myself a treat by going to M&S and picking up a falafel, and if I was feeling really nasty, I'd get a Diet Coke or something like that. I'd have this on the way to the library, and once I got there, I'd sit down in the cafe area and just kind of get myself ready for the evening. Once I was ready, I would go upstairs to the quiet area in the library. Sometimes I would take a nap, which might be a bit weird for some people, but that also helped me transition into the evening, which is going to be a few more hours of hard work. Generally, context switching is not ideal if you can help it, and that's why I would always have specific days of the week and specific times where I would go and do the work, and that just made it very clear that that was the time I designated, and there was no uncertainty of, for example, saying I go to the library twice a week. Instead, it is I go to the library on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I have weekend stuff too. Another ritual I had, even though I was low energy and it was the end of the day, I was tired from working, I would say, what would be my favorite way to study what I'm studying? And that just opens you up to the possibility of looking at the same material in completely different ways. So often I would like to draw things out, especially if they were abstract things like statistics. Working through practice problems was sometimes ideal just because the structure is set out. Sometimes I wanted to copy notes just because it wasn't very difficult, but actually it's not a very effective way to learn. What it did do is get me into the mood, which is more important. So don't worry about doing things that are inefficient at first, as long as they get you into the mood to start doing things that are more efficient. Generally, you should always bias towards action, meaning not passively reading one thing and then transferring it to the other, i.e. copying or highlighting. Those are not active ways of learning. You want to produce something from memory. You want to look at it, study it, just do that one thing in that moment, and then switch. And in the second moment, I'm just producing, I'm not reading. 3 is study material that is novel. So a lot of the material will be novel anyway, but what I actually mean by this is that it shouldn't have much to do with your day job. When I finished work and I went to the library, I was studying something completely different from my day job. This might not be the case for you because you might be studying something that relates to your job, but in that case, I would say at least apply it to something different, like a fictional company, or study a competitor and then apply the principles to their data or whatever it is. That way, when you go there, you know you're not continuously looking at the same material. So I think that refreshes you, and it means that you don't feel like you're continuously looking at the same stuff over and over again. So you might think about it like if you were working a full day at work, but you loved rock climbing, you'd have a renewed sense of, oh, I'm going to go rock climbing and I love doing that. And it's completely different. So you know that you're not engaging your brain in exactly the same way you have done all day. Instead, make it fresh, make it new, make it appealing. Number 4 is earn credit, but give it too. You've decided to do something that's quite difficult and you're dedicating a lot of your extra time to do something that most people will not do, which is great because that's going to set you apart from everyone else and you're adding to your own skill set. But make sure that you reflect on the extra work that you're doing and make sure that you give yourself props for doing it. Generally, it's not a great idea to focus on the way you feel in the moment, because that means that if you're not in the mood to do something, you won't do it. But ignoring how you feel is equally detrimental, and eventually you're just going to feel like you don't want to do it anymore. So make sure you reflect and give yourself props because you're doing something that no one is really forcing you to do, and you don't really need to do. You're doing it out of your own volition. And remember, your body is where your mind lives. You have to treat your body well. So sleeping, exercise, all that good stuff. I know people say it everywhere else, but it's really important because that is the absolute foundation of you being able to do good work. I would like to clarify is one thing that people say, which is try your best. I say this is way too vague. Instead, I would try and make it about the individual moment and say, what is the best I can do with this task? What is the best I can do with this assignment? And that way you're really focusing on the resources you have there in that moment, and then you're going to be able to bring yourself fully to the task. Thank you for listening. This is a new channel, so I would appreciate you supporting it in the usual way. And let me know if you're studying or hoping to study something soon. Until next time.